All right, guys, we're going to talk about Cramer's rule, and today we're going to talk about a 3 by 3. Okay, the reason this is a 3 by 3 is there's how many equations? Three equations, and there's how many different variables?
3 variables.
Okay, so with the 2 by 2, remember we just wrote all the coefficients, right? And then so this is a little bit different because if you write all the coefficients, it doesn't make like a square. So first thing you're going to do, I'm going to write this down, is you're going to write coefficients for x, y, and z. Okay, it's the first thing you do. And then you're going to recopy, you'll see what I mean in a second, but you're going to recopy columns, I should say, 1 and 2. And remember, you use the answers for whatever variable you are solving for. So again, we'll go over this in a second when we do this, but in this case, we're going to find our determinant. We're going to find D. Then we're going to find D sub x, D sub y, D sub z. Right? You guys with me? See that? So the first thing you're going to do is write the coefficients for x, y, and z. Then you have to recopy the first 2 columns. And I'll show you what I mean by this. So we're going to find 4 determinants. We're going to find what D equals. That's our coefficients. We're going to find D sub x. We're going to find D sub y, and we're going to find D sub z. And then once we find that, we'll be able to get our ordered triples. So to find just your determinant, like I said, you're going to write down coefficients for x, for y, and for z. So what are the coefficients for x? What are the numbers I'm going to put in the x column?
-1, 2.
-1, 2, and 3. Perfect. What am I putting coefficient-wise for y? What's the coefficient for the first y? 2. Are there any y's in the second equation?
No.
So you put a 0, and then -4, right? And then I have -3, 1, 4. God bless you. -3, 1, and 4. So there, we did the first step of writing the coefficients for x. Now, this step you have to do every single time in order to be able to do your majors and your minors. You have to recopy the first 2 columns. So out here, I'm going to recopy. I'm going to say -1, 2, and 3. And then the second column is 2, 0, -4. Do you guys see how I did that? Fill in your matrix, you fill in what you're looking for, then you have to recopy. So now we have to do our majors and our minors, just like we did before, remember? So look, you're going to have, in this case, when you have a 3 by 3, meaning 3 variables and 3 equations, you're going to have 3 majors and 3 minors. So watch, I have 1, 2, 3. The reason we have to recopy is so we can make those 3 diagonals. So it's going to be your major minus, we'll do it like this, minors. And we're going to do a couple of these, and then we're going to practice this a bunch, I promise. So you're going to multiply everything that's along the major. So in the first major, we'll say this is the first major, what's -1 times 0 times 4? 0, okay. Then multiply this one. This is the second one. What's 2 times 1 times 3?
6.
Yep. And then here's the third one. What's -3 times 2?
-24.
Times -4 gives me +24, right? Everybody see that? So I have minus, and then now you're going to do the same thing with your 3 minors. So you see there's 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. It's going to be 3 numbers in each diagonal. That's why you have to recopy. So here, this is my first one there. What's -3 times 0 times 3?
Did you say -2?
No, -3 times 0 times 3. 0, right? Because there's a 0. So -1 times 1 times -4. +4. And then what's 4 times 2? Times 2. And now we just simplify. What is 6 plus 24. 30 minus, what's 4 plus 16? 20. Guys, what's 30 minus 20? 10. So your determinant is 10, meaning once we find d sub x, d sub y, d sub z, we're going to divide everything by what? 10. So now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to just do the same thing over and over again. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write my matrix. Instead of x coefficients, guys, what am I going to plug in since that's what I'm looking for?
Y.
Not y's.
Z.
What do you plug in for the variable you're looking for? What does it say?
Just use the answer.
Use the answer. So instead of x, since we're finding x, we're going to plug in the answers. We're going to plug in 1, 0, and 2. Then you give me the y coefficients. What are what? 2, 0, negative 4, right? And then what? Negative 3, 1, and 4. Now, before I can do my 3 diagonals for my majors and my minors, what do I have to do with the first 2 columns? I got to rewrite them. So 1, 0, 2, good. 2, 0, negative 4. So we take our majors, right? It's major. Too many colors. Majors minus the minor. And you guys are welcome to bring in color pencils and stuff like that. So my major, I should have 3 of them. I have 1, 2, 3. You can do this in your head. What's 1 times 0 times 4? Yep. 0. And then 2 times 1 times 2. Yep. And then negative 3 times 0 times negative 4. Perfect. And then your minors. So let's find our minors. There's 1 there, there, and there. So what's 2 times 0 times negative 3? 0. What's negative 4 times 1 times 1? Negative 4. And then what's 4 times 0 times 2? All right, now this is where it's really important to watch your signs. What's 0 plus 4 plus 0? 4. Then it's minus, right? What's 0 minus 4 plus 0?
Maybe minus plus 4.
Right, so it's 0, right? Minus 4 plus 0. That gives me a negative 4, right? What is 4 minus a negative 4? 8. Very good. So this is 8. So your d sub x is 8. Good job.
Wait, that first column, where'd you get that from?
The 1, 0, 2?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever variable you're looking for, so we're finding our d sub x, you plug in the answers. So now for the y column, I'm going to plug in the answers. Good question. So we're finding d sub y. That means in my y column, that's where I put my answers. So my x coefficients, we go back to the beginning, are negative 1, 2, 3, right? Negative 1, 2, and 3. Now, like Derek just asked, since we're finding y, that means we plug in the answers. So 1, 0, 2. And then what's z? Negative 3, 1, 4. Negative 3, 1, 4. Now, before we do our diagonals, what do I have to do with the first 2 columns? We recopy. Negative 1, 2, 3, 1, 0, 2. Very good. So remember, it's major minus minor. So let's get our majors. I got 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. What's negative 1 times 0 times 4? 0. What's 1 times 1 times 3? And then what's negative 3 times 2? Right? Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. So now we're going to do our minors. Boop, boop, boop. It helps you if you make sound effects. So what is 3 times 0 times 3? 0. 2 times 1 times negative 1. Negative 2. And then 4 times 2 times 1. Perfect. So 3 minus 12 is going to give me negative 9, right? Negative 9 minus, what's negative 2 plus 8? 6. What's negative 9 minus 6? Negative 15, okay? And I know some of you are like, this is so stupid. Why would I do this? This is such a long process. You'll see why in a second. It's a good thing to know how to do in case you ever get stuck on something. And you'll see this again in college. It's not going to go away. But I'll show you why in a minute. All right, let's do d sub z. So I'm looking for z. That means I plug the answers in my z column. So my coefficients for x are negative 1, 2, 3. Negative 1, 2, and 3. My coefficients for y are 2, 0, negative 4. 2, 0, negative 4. Again, we're putting a 0 because there's no y in the second one. And then we're looking for z, so I'm going to put the answers in for the z column. 1, 0, 2. Now, what do I do with the first two columns? I rewrite them. Negative 1, 2, 3, 2, 0, negative 4. And we do major. Whoops. Major minus minor. So my majors, switching colors, so here, here, here. So I have negative 1 times 0 times 2, 0. What's 2 times 0 times 3? 0. And then what's 1 times 2 times negative 4?
8.
Negative 8, right? Minus, boop, boop, boop. All right, so we have 3 times 0 times 1 is 0. Negative 4 times 0 times negative 1 is 0. 2 times 2 is, times 2 is. So I have negative 8 minus 8, which is negative 16, right? So my d sub z is negative 16. So I have 3 variables in this set of equations. That means I'm going to have an ordered triple. So my d sub x was 8, my d sub y was negative 15, and my d sub z was negative 16. What do I do with the determinant itself that I found? I divide everything by this. So divide by 10, divide by 10, divide by 10. So your ordered triple becomes, well, if I divide this by 2, it becomes 4 over 5, right? If I divide this by 5, this becomes negative 3 over 2. And this by 2 gives me negative 8 over 5. Guys, look at this answer. Would you want to have to use elimination or substitution or that Gaussian where we combine all this stuff to get 3 fractional answers? No. This would be a mess if you try to do that Gaussian. So this is a case where you're like, oh, this would be so much easier to do this.
What if you just use substitution though? Like, would it be like easier?
You would have to deal you'd be with a lot of fractions. No, I mean, again, if there's no directions that say use this or use that, you can do whatever you want. But on the quiz that you guys are going to have on Wednesday, I'll give you, look how long it took us to do one problem, you know? I'll probably give you 1 or 2, like a 2 by 2, a 3 by 3, and then what we're doing the next week, you know? So it's worthwhile to know how to do it. It's helpful to know how to do it. All right, let's look at the next one, and then we're done. Again, use Cramer's rule. Don't worry, this is n-graphing utility, whatever. So how many equations do we have here? 3. So we need to find our regular determinant, and then we have to find all 3 variables. So d sub x, d sub y, and d sub z. With me? Yeah? Okay, so to find just our coefficient matrix, I have my coefficients. My coefficients for x is negative 1. Look, guys, if it's like this and there's nothing there, put 0x. You can put 0y, little placeholders. So I have negative 1, 2, 0. And then I have 0, negative 1, 1. And then I have 1, 1, negative 3, right? Mm-hmm. How do I figure out, because I have to have my majors minus the minors, what do I have to do before I can do my 3 majors and my 3 minors? I got to recopy. So I have negative 1, 2, 0. And then I have 0, negative 1, 1. So here we go. Let's go with our majors. So there's 1 there, there's 1 there, there's 1 there. So we have, what's negative 1 times negative 1 is 1, right? Times negative 3 gives me negative 3. So then I have 0 times 1 times 0 is 0. And then I have 1 times 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay? Minus, let's do the minors. There, there, and there. So 0 times negative 1 times negative 1 is 0. 1 times negative 1 is, whoops, I don't know why I put a comma. Negative 1, right? Minus 1. And then negative 3 times 2 times 0. Plus 0. All right, so simplify. What's negative 3 plus 2? Negative 1 plus negative 1. I get what? 0. So my determinant is 0.
If you're going to divide everything by 0.
I was just going to ask that. Think about this, guys. If I have d sub x, d sub y, and d sub z, if I'm going to divide everything by my determinant, and it happens to be 0, what's the answer here? No solution. Jacqueline just said she is a mathematician. Perfect. Now, would it be okay if, say your determinant was 12, whatever, but you got 0 for one of these? Can you say 0 divided by 12? Yeah, your answer would be 0. But if your determinant, if this right here off the bat is 0, then you know right away your answer is no solution. Good job. Are we going to have one of those? I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, think about it. It wasn't that bad. I mean, Cramer's rule is not that bad. It's annoying a little bit, but.
Extremely long.
Oh my goodness, Derek.
It's so unnecessary.
Sometimes.
It'd be so much more easier just to do fractions.
I know. Well, some of us don't like fractions, so just go with it. But that's it. That's all we have to do. So